So welcome to the Pan-African Policy Voice. This is our first episode. I'm Brook, your host, with Abdul Baari and Erisa. Today, we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic, a topic that's very close to our hearts. We know that in the Congo, there has been an ongoing conflict. And today, if I'm not mistaken, and if things do go as planned, the US will be brokering a peace deal between the M23 rebels and the Rwandan government. I have with me here two distinguished fellows from Sciences Po University who are here to share their reflections as very concerned African citizens. And now to you, comrade. What are your thoughts about what's happening right now in Congo and the US's role in brokering this peace treaty, assuming that it holds after it's brokered, that is?
Okay, so thank you, Brooke, for the introduction and actually introducing that very interesting topic. And I mean, this is something very interesting because as we speak now, actually, I think just to clear the doubt for our listeners and viewers, the peace agreement has actually been brokered and it has been signed by both parties. There have been representatives, ministers from both parties, from Rwandan government and the central government of Kinshasa. That is it His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi? Yeah, it was represented by a minister, and of course, this happened in Washington D.C. and yeah, the agreement is in force now. But I mean, just to give my preliminary opinion on this, first of all, like for me, it beats my understanding. Like two countries, almost in the east of Africa. Like I mean, I know we are going to discuss about the context of the conflict, and of course, no one supports the conflict, no one supports the war. We have seen how people have died, a lot of displacements have happened on the ground. You know, all of this, they are human issues which nobody wishes to be seeing and observing happening in the Congo. But for me, looking at the context of the agreement itself, I think there is a problem in itself, like where we have peace being taught overseas. You know, we are going to look at this context. Why is it that we have to move from the east of Africa across the Pacific to another continent to sign a peace contract? Because I think one of the elements that are missing, I have just been following the news. I've seen that actually even some of the people who have been fighting, for instance, the M23 rebels, of course, there are these allegations which are saying that they are being supported by the Rwandan government, which may hold some substance depending on how we view it. But they already, you know, criticism from M23 rebels. They are saying that they haven't been consulted in this peace agreement, because actually what has happened in Washington is a representation from the Rwandan government and a representation from the government, which is the government of Felix Tshisekedi. But the real rebels, they are claiming that they haven't been represented in this peace talk. So the first question is, whose peace agreement is this? Because the real parties which are fighting on the ground, we haven't seen them in Washington. We have seen the government of Rwanda and the government of Congo, and the rebels who are fighting the government of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, they are nowhere to be seen in this agreement and negotiation. So, for me, I may say that we may see a little bit of breaks within the war, but the war itself coming to an end. I don't see it coming. Maybe I don't know what will happen in the next few months or years. It may be the same stuff, because there have been conflicts in Congo since times so many years. So I mean, I can leave it at this point, and then we see what other colleagues are saying. I know we are going to come back to these issues and discuss. Thank you, Brooke.
And you, Abdul Baari, how do you feel about how things are unraveling and the US's role in brokering this peace treaty?
Okay, we see that this is unfortunate for some of us who has been strong supporters of Africa's unity. For long, we've advocated that we should be able to have internal discourse to solve our own conflict. But this is just an example or a case where the African Union or the SADC has failed because we weren't able to broker such a peace. So if you look at some of these things, you tend to question the real existence of the African Union or the SADC or all the regional bodies. I know that to be able to be a mediator for a conflict or something, you need to have a power to maintain the peace. And we know that the US has the power. If it's about economic power, he has it. If it's about military power, it has it. But look at it in this context. Africa Union as a whole, look at the whole of Africa together. If as a one country as a whole in Africa cannot mediate that conflict because we don't have the economic power nor the military power. But the African Union as a whole should be able to do something like that. So to have the US come in to broker this peace is a shame on the African continent. We know the US mediate not only in the African continent, it does in every continent. But this we want to see an African continent where we solve our own problems. And this happening today is a shame on us. And some of us, we hope that a time will come where Africa will be able to mediate its own conflict, solve our own conflict, such that when there's a conflict and the Western countries doesn't have interest, we can still solve it. Just imagine that the US hasn't come in. It means this conflict would have lasted forever and lives would have lost. If you look at the figures, they're astonishing. Look at 2016, they say little above 2 million people were displaced. And in 2024, there is reported that close to 7 million people have been displaced. So it means that if the US hasn't come in somewhere 2028, we'll have about 10 million people being displaced. So it's disheartening. It's disheartening that people's lives are being lost, people's livelihoods are being destroyed. But more disheartening that we can't solve our own problems. Yeah. So this is my take on it.
Interesting reflections, Abdul Bari.
Yeah.
And you've raised a very interesting point that the absence of a strong nation in Africa that can broker a peace treaty and that can enforce that treaty, whether be it through economic influence or political power, seems to be one of the root causes why the West seems to always be the white savior as it always claims to be. And
Exactly.
back to you, Erisa. Do you think the fact that there is an absence of a strong African nation to keep peace, to broker peace treaties, do you think this has resulted in the US coming in and playing the arbiter that it always has?
Yeah, well, I think very important and interesting points that we have both raised in here. I totally agree with the points raised by Abdul, like, yeah, where he says that, yeah, of course, it is a very shaming for us as African countries and nations, and especially very shaming to our leaders, like the way how they are, jumping, going to the US. But of course, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it also goes back like to the way how we look at the states and how do we define a strong state in this case? How do we define a strong government to broke peace here? Like, okay, of course we know US has the strong economic power, they have the military, and we have seen them doing this all over the world. And I mean, like, considering the current administration of Trump every day is meeting leaders in the Oval Office here and there. I mean, this speaks to the position and the general, the contemporary geopolitics that is happening. The way how these big powers are trying to show who is who, and of course, there is also this context. We have seen China's expansion in Africa, and the fact that US comes in and makes this peace deal, of course, alongside Qatar, which might be a little bit a neutral actor in this. But of course, we have also to look at this aspect that USA is trying to show that despite the fact that China has increased its grip over Africa, they still have a say in the African affairs. And I think that's also another angle that we can look at this, that they have been able to block this peace. But of course, for me, it takes me back to African leaders. I mean, all of us, we are Africans. We come from these African countries, and you have seen how our leaders are desperately either running to China, or running now recently going to Russia. They are running to the US. Even when we have these internal conflicts which would have been solved, for instance, by the African Union. But I think, as Abdul has mentioned, we don't see the African Union anywhere, and we are wondering, what is this institution for? What are they supposed to do? This is something they should have handled. But by the fact that now it is in the US hands, and we know what USA is up to resources. We are talking about people being displaced. We are talking about people being killed. But I mean, I think I personally, I believe that the issue in the Congo is way beyond peace, is way beyond war. We all know how these countries, especially developed countries, are profiting out of conflicts. We have seen people making deals in Ukraine, for instance. I'm just making this as a reference. People are dying, people are being bombed, but the so-called government heads are sitting here and there making deals, and the only demands they are making, that you have to sign here in order to end the conflict. So I mean, this is something that I think is not so different from what is happening in the Congo. No wonder the US is coming in, and when you look at what they have signed, the peace deal is indirectly ensuring that USA will have access to the resources in the Congo. So, and speaking about other, African heads of state and governments, whether they are strong or whether they are weak, I mean, I think they don't have a choice. I've always held this view that, we would have thought doing things different, but the system where we are acting from doesn't allow us to do that. These guys, women and men who are leading our governments, they are not independent. They can't think independently out of these systems. We have seen how they have thrown sanctions over some of them who have tried to a little bit be independent, think differently. But the fact that we are not united, as Abdul has mentioned, that the lack of unity among us can't allow us to act on our behalf. And if you can't be united to act as a group, it means you have to find allies, of which these countries are doing. African leaders and African countries are not united. If they were united, at least we would have seen the African Union as a unity coming in to solve this conflict. But this one is a very shaming situation, because it even undermines our own very institutions, that they can't block peace within our own countries. Because when you look at Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, these are all member states of the African Union. And actually, even before going there, we can look at the immediate communities and unions. Look at the East African community. Even before going to the, we haven't seen any kind of arrangement within this community, because Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo, they are both member states of the East African community. But I mean, now we ask our questions: what are the roles? What is the position of this community? What have they done? But now, out of blue, and actually within a matter of I think like month, or I don't know, they have made this peace deal with the new administration of the United States. So I mean, a lot of dynamics here, but yeah, that's what I can say at the moment. Let's hear what other guys have to say.
To you, Abdul Baari, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have only one word for this deal. It's basically a transactional deal. I don't see it as a peace deal. I don't see it as a lasting peace. Just like Erisa earlier on highlighted, that the rebels, the people that are a main part of the conflict, one side of the conflict is saying that it has not been represented. So how do you define this? This is not a peace deal. Someone who is in the field already fighting, you are signing a deal in his name and the person is not present. The person is saying that he's not around while you are still signing. So to me, what kind of a deal is that? Deals just fitting into the current US foreign policy, a transactional foreign policy, where they try to, I would like to ask, why is the US not in Sudan negotiating? The answer is simple, because Sudan has no resources. Why are they in Congo? Because they want access to the rare earth minerals. So because of that, they have to do everything they can to strike a shadow peace, a peace that to me is not won't last. It's just a superficial fix. And I hate to say it, that we don't want to see conflict. We hate it. Our brothers are dying. People are being turned to orphans. It's disheartening. But if this is how it is going to be a transactional diplomacy, then it's not going to last. You must bring all parties on board. The M3, which is a main part of this conflict, is saying it's not represented. It's just confusing. So how do you reconcile this? This just strengthens the belief that this peace, is unfortunate to say, may not last. So that is my view. It's just a transactional deal, and it may not stand the test of time. Yeah.
Let me weigh in a bit on that. And
Yes.
as we know, the Congo has been the canary in the coal mine, a reminder to all African countries that riches don't necessarily mean that a country develops. And now with the US's entry into Congo, some people, may I say, a bit naively or maybe realistically, hope that the US can bring much needed stability to the Congo. And after all, the people may be better off than they were before on average. What would you say to those people that say that the US may be the much needed regional stabilizer to keep the peace and to make sure that the Congolese at last can enjoy the fruits of their riches, their resources? To
Okay,
you,
I
Erisa.
think. Okay.
Oh, please, Abdul, go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that that argument is valid, and if you look at all things, because if US is going to that kind of deal, it means that US businesses will be investing in the Congo mines. And to protect their business interests, they are going to do everything they can to make sure that they have I don't know whether it's going to be military presence or whatever. But what they're going to do is that they're going to make sure that their businesses are protected at what cost? At all costs. So in protecting their businesses, it means peace is being built in the region. But as to how strong or how far they are willing to go to protect their businesses is the other thing. You know that countries like US, although we always praise them that they have a long-standing foreign policy, but remember, every political party in the government comes with a different foreign policy. So if let's say the Trump government is doing everything to protect the businesses that it will broker this deal for, what happens is if a new government comes in and think that it's not worth it, it's not worth investing militarily in protecting the businesses that are there. So it's a big question. Would US be able to invest militarily to protect its businesses? If so, how long are they able to hold? Because these militants, or however we like to label them, this is where they come from. And they are fighting with some inner instinct that they never get tired of. So no matter how long you stay there, you forever, they will also be there. So for a peace to really happen, I think that both parties must agree to a certain terms. But having a peace deal where a country will a peace deal such that US will be protecting its businesses, and in that peace will prevail is kind of a shoddy peace deal, which may hold in the short run, but in the long run, I doubt. I doubt sincerely.
Exactly. I think I can jump in here. I mean, yeah, it is too early to assess whether this will hold or whether it will not hold, but depending on history, if we draw back on history, I mean, we can all agree at this point that this peace deal will not really result in any, any long-term benefits for the people in Congo. Because I just want to take us a little bit back, like to have a timeline for our people. We are talking about the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is Democratic Republic of Congo. if we go back actually to where I think problems started to arise within the Congo. Congo is very rich in terms of natural resources. The Democratic Republic of Congo, you know, there are two Congo, but the Democratic Republic of Congo, which we are talking about now, was a former colony for, is it the Belgium?
Yeah,
I
Belgium.
think Belgium. I think even before that, there is this King Leopold, who holded this part of Congo as his personal property, not even just as a colony, but just as a personal what? A personal property, as you how you can own a garden, or you can own a motorcycle or a car or something like that. So someone held Congo as a personal property, and Congo was framed in a way that actually it is just a source, just like all of, I think most of the African countries which were colonized, they were colonized in a way that they are source of materials for these other countries. They draw sources in terms of natural resources and even human labor as resources. So this is Congo that we are talking about, that all actors, even within the region, even Rwanda itself, or even these other neighbors, Uganda, we have seen many scenarios where they are being criticized of rooting from Congo. So Congo is like a basin full of gold where everyone is just running to pick up what they can and run away. And I think this speaks to Abdul's point that in this peace deal that they have signed today, it is just an assurance of how the businessmen and women from the United States can penetrate into this basin also to pick out what they can. And I think what the US government is going to do, and what they wanted for them in this case, is to make sure that they get an entry point, and of course they will be there to guard their people when they are doing this business, just as we have seen with these other countries. So I wanted to tell you that in 1996, I think that's when the first Congo War happened, which saw the overthrow of the guy. Some people call him a dictator, Mobutu Sese Seko. And since then, when Congo attained independence, there have been these fights since 1996, 1997 until today. And throughout all that period, they have been signing different peace deals. But why is it that ever after maybe 1 or 2 years, and this is something I think that we are trying to predict. So there is always that kind of peace for a limited time, but that peace is to ensure harmony on how these outsiders, people who have blocked peace, ensure the peaceful, stealing and smuggling of resources out of Congo. The people who are truly Congolese, they will stay poor and they will stay suffering. And this has been the trend. We have had cases where they have accused the Ugandan government. We know very well the Ugandan government of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has been intervening in the Congo for I don't know how many times. But I mean, what has it yielded? Actually, I think they're even battling a case in the International Criminal Court because they are accused of having been engaged in illegal stealing of Congolese timber. Congo has a large, rainforests, which are very rich in terms of wood and stuff like that. So everyone, actors within the region, on the African continent, outside of Africa, everyone is coming in. I don't think is coming in the good sense of ensuring peace, but everyone is going there to steal. But this is something that is very, disheartening, because it is very bad for our people. People are dying, people have been displaced, people are suffering. Actually, I think ideally, theoretically, it would have been like Congolese. These are people who are supposed to be one of the richest people on this planet, but unfortunately, it's the other way around, that they are one of the poorest in the world. They are suffering. They don't have what to eat. They don't have nice roads. They don't have anything, but they have resources, which we from outside want like nothing, and we are ready to get them, whether be it by shedding blood or what. So very unfortunate. I mean, this is very serious thing that I think we should look into as Africa, and unite against it. So yeah, I mean, over to you, Brooke.
wanted to bring into the spotlight whether the issue in Congo can really ever find a local solution. Can there really be perhaps a coalition of political parties, a coalition of interested parties? Maybe we can throw in M23 into the mix and Rwanda. Can there ever be a coalition around that area that can fix this problem and put to rest the age-old adage that uh, you know resources for the Congo are a curse?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that is very interesting. You have talked about natural resources as being as a curse. This is something that I have enjoyed since I think, my early university days, debating how natural resources are either a curse or whether they are not a curse. I mean, I'll just highlight on it because I mean, they are Congo, yes, very rich in natural resources, but of course, yeah, it takes us back to this aspect of looking at Congo. You know, Congo is rich in natural resources, but other countries, how do we see it, and how has it been framed? You know, I think most of African countries who have been, made in a way that we are producing we are producing raw materials, all these resources, to other countries. And actually, for us, we provide these raw materials on a very low cost and then import, finished goods at a very high cost. And this is what our history has made us to do. And I think Congo is not in any way different. And by the fact that Congo has been deprived of strong institutions, because it also goes back to how Congo was occupied, as I mentioned before, that Congo was held by the King Leopold as a personal property. So everything that was being done in the Congo, it wasn't for the benefit of the people in Congo, it was for the other person outside of Congo. So everything was extract out of Congo. So the current generation of people in Congo, even they themselves, they have this mindset. And that's why when you talk about decolonizing the African society, we need to decolonize not only in terms of political institutions or the economy, but even in the mind. Everyone, I have had a lot of Congolese friends, and I think if they will watch this video, they can make it in the comment. Everyone thinks in terms of, doing business. How do I extract? How do I get access to cobalt? How do I get access to gold? How do I get access to that? And then export it outside, not even process it from within Congo. I doubt whether Congo is one of the main countries with maybe gold reserves or cobalt reserves. No, it is not. Yet it holds these deposits within the country. So we extract out, and then after we start looking for the end product of these resources that we are hosting within the country, which is very unfortunate. So we are talking about whether it is a resource curse or not. For in terms of for our viewers, I think a resource scarce scenario, this is a scenario where a country which is rich in natural resources, theoretically, we would assume that it would be prosperous in terms of, having very nice economy, booming economy and everything, because you have the resources, you can sell on the market and get a lot of money, maybe develop the infrastructure in the country, ensure a good health system, stuff like that. But the other way around, then the resources become a curse because you are not benefiting. You see this violence, you see conflicts, you see poor governance. Everyone in the government is corrupt. I think when you look at the International Corruption Index, Congo is one of the highest corrupt countries in the world. But these are things which are all coming because of the resources, the black market business that is happening within the country. So as I say, everyone is rooting, and no one is concerned about the general welfare of the people. No one is concerned about the social organization of the country. But of course, this goes back to the way how the country was, framed by those who came and occupied it. The Belgians, the French, and other actors from outside the world. They made Congo to be as something that is a source, supplying outsiders and not even making sure that these resources will benefit its own people. And this is what we are saying today. Yeah.
Before I turn to you, Abdul Baari, Do you think that the US, if given the opportunity to develop Congo's riches, would play in good faith? Do you think the US would develop infrastructure, would try to nurture democracy in the Congo, or would it be just like all the other predecessors that came in and just took the resources? What do you think about that, Abdul Bari? I would really appreciate your reflection on that.
Okay, I think it's this is a difficult question because it's like me trying to look into the future and then talk about a hypothetical situation, which is very difficult. But before I answer that, I would just want to first of all respond to what Erisa responds to, because I have an interesting view I want to share. For the question as to whether there can be a local solution to the problem is very hard to say, because there are parties that are fighting each other. It means that there's strong animosity against each party. So it's very difficult, and there are a lot of dynamics to it. But on the case that whether natural resources are a curse, I've always said that natural resources cannot be a curse. It's just that how our countries are being framed, how we manage them is a matter of management. If you say it's a case, let's look at Saudi Arabia, let's look at the UAE. Where were these countries before their oil? And right after oil, which is a natural resource, now look at those countries. They are big powers. Look at Qatar now, which is brokering peace between countries. So you can't say this example, these examples let you know that you can't outrightly say that natural resources are a curse. It's just feeding into our whole political system where everybody is corrupt, where we manage things poorly. And then to this also connect to your question that, okay, then if we have the resources and we know that the resources can develop our countries, then the case is that, okay, if we are not managing them well, what if we just give everything to the US and say, okay, mind our resources and build our infrastructure for us? Is it possible? Would that work? That is that's where the difficulty comes, because what we've seen from colonialism, or although we can equate the current events to the early days, but we can draw some similarities. What you will see is that when you give this management to these countries, they don't have any interest in you. To be sincere, they don't have any interest in you as a human being. What they have interest in is the resources. What you are going to see is that you're going to see a country where if all infrastructure is built around the natural resources. In the case of you'll see that all railways will move directly from the mines to the ports, or let's say nowadays from the mines directly to the airports. That's the kind of infrastructure you're going to see. You're going to see, let's say, because they will have immigrants from their countries working in the mines, you're going to have all better schools in only the mining areas. You're going to have all the infrastructure in only the mining areas. So it's not actually going to be a development. It's just going to be a development in only the mining areas, which is not actually what we want. We want a nationwide development. So my belief is that if we say that, okay, we have a management problem, then let's give it to a foreign country to manage for us. I don't think it's going to help, because those people are not, they don't really care about who we are. They don't care about you as a person. They care about the resources. And that is so.
Yeah, maybe just to jump on that, Brooke, before you come in, is very interesting. Yeah, like it's very interesting, like what you asked Brooke, saying that whether if things would be different if we say, for instance, if we put the management of these resources in totally the hands of the US, or whether be it China or any other country. I personally believe that the issue is not management. The issue is not management, but how have we been taught to manage these resources? The way how we have been told to manage these resources is what is costing us, like, because as I said before, that our mindset is already tuned in a way that we think we can't even process these minerals, because look at all of our resources and where we are, mining them. Very, very few countries, I think, on African continent that have processing plants after mining these resources. We mine them and we export them as raw materials when they are still in their, early stages, when they don't even have a higher value on the market. So still we have this chain of, producing something and then export it as when it is still, of a lower value. And this is something that we need to work on, to increase the value chain of our resources, to make sure that we can gain from them. Because again, the issue of management, we can't really say that Africans, we have, me, I don't believe that. I will still blame the system. We have this system which has placed us in a way that we can't act ourselves. We have to act according to the system, because we have a lot of Chinese now around the continent who are in charge of different projects and even the mines. But I think, as Abdul has mentioned, that when you even look at the development that is being brought because of these resources, it is not happening countrywide, it's not happening nationwide. It is happening within these specific places. And actually, if you analyze it critically, these infrastructures are not even meant for the locals. They are meant for the population, or for the people of these expatriates who have came in to manage the resources. Because if you have a mining project in a given area, for instance, where they have a lot of expatriates, maybe for instance from China, I'm using it as an example, or Russia, or USA, or Germany, or what, they have to make sure that they have these facilities, for example, international schools, where their children are going to go, because they are going to be here helping you managing the project for maybe 5 or 10 years. And they have to make sure, for instance, they can have access to quality health centers, not necessarily for the locals, because I have visited these places, not necessarily in DRC, but in other countries. Uganda recently has discovered oil and gas in the eastern side of the country, almost with borders with Congo. And when you look at the development trajectory in the area, of course, as Abdul is saying, now they're even developing an international airport there. They have made sure that the infrastructure is really nice, but not for the locals. These roads are leading to the airport for exporting these minerals. The very well developed roads are not leading to the villages where the local people are farming. No, they are making sure that they are connecting these hubs to make sure that oil will be transported very well to reach the people who have the money, to reach the market. For instance, recently there are a lot of, I think, East African countries, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, they were having this bigger project of developing the crude oil pipeline. There is an oil pipeline leading from the eastern side, where oil was discovered in Uganda, through Tanzania, then across to the Indian Ocean. So when you analyze the infrastructures that come with these minerals and resources, I don't know if you will be convinced to say that they are really benefiting the people. So at the end, the solution, talking about the solution, whether we can have a locally manufactured solution to this problem, it has to go beyond the resources themselves. It has to go back to we the people, like what do we want, especially the politicians. Because like, for us who are not in the system, or in the political system, or in the government, we may speak about the right things to be done, but the people in the system, actually, they are convinced to do otherwise. They are doing different things, but until they realize that we have to be responsible for our own resources, we have to breed local solutions, not even to start jumping around going to block these peace agreements elsewhere. Because US, what will ensure, they will ensure that they are catered for in this agreement, not necessarily the people in the Congo. If you watch news currently, you will see that people who are really suffering, who are displaced, they don't even know what is happening. So they don't know something is happening elsewhere, at least if that peace deal was signed within their confines. But this is something that is, has a lot of dynamics that we really need to look into. So yeah, thank you.
Interesting reflections, Erisa.
Mm.
Interesting things you raised. I want to bring back both of your focus into something that I found to be um, quite interesting, and that is we all have Rwandan friends, and this conflict is quite close to their hearts. And I want us to take a few minutes discussing and analyzing the root cause behind the conflict. And many around the area believe that uh, the root cause of the problem is indeed the colonial borders that exist around that area, and how people of uh, a single ethnic background seem to have been divided, and how current existing colonial borders have created risk for some groups. And not just in Congo, but generally in Africa, we have different conflicts across the continent, especially around border areas. And I want you to weigh in on this through a very specific analytical lens, and that is, do we need to redefine colonial borders? Is African unity perhaps the solution that we're seeking in terms of putting an end to the conflict and silencing the guns forever?
Abdul, over to you.
Erisa, it's too bad. This is a difficult question because first of all, let me start from the last part and then answer backwards. You ask whether we should go back to a certain border system and not what the colonial masters has created already. This is practically impossible for now. If we will preach that, we would like to do it, but if you look at it, it's just impossible. Let's say you will have a certain tribe which is cut in half. So they see that at one end, in the other country, the other tribe is being valued well, but in the country in which they are now, they are just treated like they don't feel belong. So they feel like they should be part of the other country. But it doesn't happen that way because now these borders has been entrenched by international law. And not just that, if we want to take the borders from where they exist now to somewhere else, the other countries will feel that, okay, other tribe will be like, let me also be part of this tribe. Let me not be part of this tribe. You are taking away our resource-rich part. So it's just, although the colonial boundaries are giving us troubles, we can also bring in new borders as well because it's going to generate in more troubles. So it's just, we are just in the midst of troubles that we don't have solution to. So I just think that the current borders, you may think that if we change them to have borders that we can change them to have borders where there's peace, but I don't think that is just hypothetical. I don't think we can ever have something like that.
So a quick question. So you don't see it in the near future, the African continent somehow moving towards to something akin of the United States in terms of breaking down the borders? Do you think the current route which the AU is actually taking in terms of economic integration won't translate into a more concrete, a confederation type of arrangement?
I think now, for us becoming something like a federal state, that aim has far been lost because I don't think we can achieve that status anymore. To be realistic, it will be good to have it, but it's just practically impossible because there are a lot of things that plays into it. So now what me I will advocate for is that we integrate just like the European Union, where we have seamless borders. Everybody can move across, trade move across, financial transaction move across, movement of human beings and capital is just seamless, where we'll have a system where if you have a company that is registered in, let's say, Ethiopia, that same company transferring the business registration to Ghana should be seamless. The Ghanaian government should see the registration in Ethiopia as a vindication of the credibility of the business and not subject the business to a lengthy process again. So what we need now is economic integration. What we need now is to economically dismantle the borders so that people can move in seamlessly. So that somebody in Ghana can apply for a job in Rwanda or in Tanzania, and he will not be, they wouldn't require him to have a visa or to have a work permit or to have those kind of things. So for now, that will be my aim. And I see that aim as the African unity that Nkrumah and other people have been advocating for. For now, the federal state or whatever is unachievable. We have to redefine the unity we're talking about here. And that will be economic unity. Yeah. Brook, are you with us?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to soak in everything you've just mentioned, and I think you've raised interesting ideas. And Erisa, I also would want you to weigh in on what I mentioned earlier about how colonial borders have played a role and still do play a role to a large extent in terms of dictating the future destinies of people. And do you think, I know, of course, that you are someone who really champions African unity, and how do you see this in the long term? Do you think that, you know, breaking down borders is the solution?
Yeah. Okay. I think you can hear me very well. So, yeah, thank you, Brooke, for that question. I mean, yeah, when you look at the conflict that is happening, the fighting in DR Congo, yeah, I think the issue of borders is also one of the problems. But of course, to understand this, I mean, I always want to reflect on the way how we lived before these borders, because these borders, we see them happening in 1884, 1885, during the Bahrain Conference, which marked the scramble and partition for Africa, when Africa was divided and shared as a hot cake. My historian teacher used it to say Africa was divided and shared as a hot cake. The European powers, when they gathered and divided Africa amongst themselves. So the issue of borders starts from there. They imposed the borders. And we have to note that these borders, actually, they were drawn by rulers and maps. Piece of papers like this. They were not drawn by people's consent. They didn't come to ask the people on the ground, whoever geographer sat somewhere, either in Bahrain or somewhere, to draw these borders. This is a very important issue that our people need to understand. There were no consent. There were no consultation. What I'm told through the historical books which I'm reading, and of course with my grandparents, that before we were divided like this, before these, I don't know, I call them European or Western borders were imposed onto us, our communities used it to live in harmony. Of course, we had borders, but the borders we had, they were harmonized borders, borders which were understood in African way. So our communities used it to live. Actually, I will refer to different tribes. We had tribes in the pre-colonial period. I think, Brooke, you will agree with me on this, because I'm very sure you are very informed about this. Our tribes existed, but they never existed and they were not defined by borders. They used it to cross through. You know, today we had the tribes, and I mean, all of us, we have read about the migration and, you know, the movement of people. People used it to move and cross from one area to another, but these borders were not, you know, framed in a way that like how they are today. So the major point is, what I'm trying to communicate is that our people were not consulted. People did not consent to these borders, so they ended up dividing us. And this is a very strong issue when it comes to the issue in Rwanda. You know, Rwanda has basically two major ethnic groups which have been played out in the history. You know, the Tutsi and the Hutu. we know very well how the Europeans have developed narrative, ethnic theories, which are related to racial theories, to divide our people. The way how they say two C's are not even Africans, they connect them to I don't know, some Nilotic Hamites, you know, all of these theories, which I don't want to bring into this discussion. But the bottom line is that there have always been these, you know, theories to try to divide our people, to try to make sure that we are not united. And unfortunately, this is a very central issue when it comes to the conflict in the Congo and the way how Rwanda relates with Democratic Republic of Congo. Just to, you know, shine a picture for our listeners and viewers, when you see the map of Africa and you see where Congo is and where DRC is, Congo is a very tiny small country within the East African region, very small like this. But again, before that, we read about empires. Rwanda, yes, I mean Rwanda. Thank you, Abdul, for that correction. I mean Rwanda. Rwanda is very tiny country. Congo actually is big. Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest country in Africa, because I think it borders with 9 other countries in Africa. That is for a fact.
I saw somewhere that is about 88 times the size of Rwanda.
You see, so very, very huge. It's very, very huge. It borders with 9 countries. You see, so it's very, very huge. But again, yeah, going back to that point that DRC, Rwanda, and Uganda, they share borders. And unfortunately, as I was saying, that the people within this area, they are the same. But as I said before, that a certain geographer, I don't even think that he was a geographer, because even the map of Africa and the borders of Africa are contested. Seated or standing somewhere, drew these borders, and all of a sudden they were naturalized. Now they are recognized, I don't know, by the international law, by the whatever things the people refer them to. But the bottom line is our people were divided. All of these ethnic people who were living there, they were divided. Others were distributed into what we know as Rwanda, others distributed into what we know as DRC, others distributed into Uganda, others are in Burundi. But when you go there, actually, you will find that people are speaking the same language. But again, when they are referring to them, others will tell you, I'm Rwandi, the other one will tell you I'm Congolese, the other one will tell you I'm Ugandan, belonging to this tribe. But all of this go back to the colonial tricks, which they did. You know, bring these borders, divide people, tell them you are not the same, tell them you are different from these ones. But when you go there, actually, as Brook, you mentioned that we all have Rwandan friends. We have interacted with these people. We have read about their history. We know them. When you look at the reasons as to why even these people are fighting in the Democratic Republic of Congo, most of the people who are making up the M23 groups, they say they are Rwandese. And actually, historically, some of them, they even have their families. Some of them have families in Rwanda, family relatives, and others are in Congo. But the issue is, because now our people have been told that those who are in the demarcation of Democratic Republic of Congo are Congolese. They are not supposed to be Rwandese. Yet these people, actually, when you go back, and I think one of the issues that is making them to fight, they are saying, no, look, our families are here, and they are part of us. You can't say we can't be part of you. But again, also, I was interacting with another colleague from Rwanda, and he was saying that, you know, what Rwanda doesn't want is, when you look at the DRC government, they are saying, take back your people. But they don't want these people to go back with the land. And I think this is also a very interesting point. Because Kagame and his government in Rwanda, they are arguing, if they are Rwandese in this other part, which is near, I think the areas of Goma, Eastern DRC, which is neighboring Congo, they want to come back to Rwanda, but they want to send these people back without anything. So, but ideally what Rwanda is arguing is like, okay, these people, if they are claiming to be part of us, let's redefine the boundaries and make sure that they become part of Rwanda, but staying within that area, occupying the land, but that land now be recognized as part of Rwanda. You see? So it takes us to Abdul's point where he was saying that Unfortunately, the government of DRC cannot agree because it will be like a redefinition of the boundaries. So the colonizers, what they did to us is very fundamental. It's something that, unfortunately, if you try to reverse it, that's how you end up creating these conflicts because nobody will agree. If we know about the history of Uganda as well, I'll note something that happened during 1960s during Idi Amin's regime. Amin wanted to reclaim part of Tanzania. You know, the border of in the south, the border of Uganda and Tanzania. We have also another very interesting scenario there. Most people in southern Uganda, they speak the same dialect with the people in northern Tanzania because they are right at the border. Originally, before these foreign imposed borders, these people were the same. They even belonged to the same kingdoms. But because of the borders, they were divided. So when Amin comes into power and he visits this area, he found out that actually people in northern Tanzania, they were speaking the same language as people in southern Uganda. So it was like, no, these people are supposed to be part of us because they are speaking our language. They are, even the way they live, even what they eat, their culture is purely matching with the immediate people in Uganda. So he wanted to redefine, and I think this is some of it caused even his overthrow. 1969, he wanted to claim part of northern Tanzania to put it back to Uganda. So he was trying to redefine the border. And I think that time it was Julius Nyerere. He was like, no, we can't do this. This is like, attacking our sovereign country. Now the fighting broke up. Something like what is happening there, almost related. So, I mean, we are captured into this, and I don't know how we shall overcome it. But I think, not to take too much time, I would say that we need to go back into how Africans will look at Africa ourselves, like, because for us we didn't believe in this thing, like, because this scenario is happening all over Africa. You find people sharing same culture but divided by just a simple, and I think it is even a theoretical line, because I have crossed borders but I've never seen that line. It is theoretical, it is something on the paper. So
Intriguing perspectives,
interesting.
Erisa. Intriguing
Yeah.
perspectives. Yeah, and we do hope that the peace treaty does hold, and our heart goes out to all those that are affected by the conflict. And again, intriguing analysis and perspectives from both of you. I thoroughly enjoyed having this deep reflection on what's unraveling